So I let it sit for probably about 3 or 4 hours, and it's pretty firm. It's a soft leather hard. Okay, down here is still regular leather, like middle leather, a leather hard, and this is soft. I can dent this, so I'm going to try to be really careful. And I'm going to go up a little bit, and then I'm going to flare out and go back and then flare out again. Okay. This is probably going to go a lot faster too, just because there's so much less circumference to go around. Okay, and you can, if you can see this or not, but I've already pre-scored everything just to make this go quicker for you. So I'll probably go up like 1 or 2 levels. And yes, this is going to be a lot more scoring. Okay, so now I'm going to, once again, support and smooth. I'm actually going to break that off just so it's a little easier to work with as I smooth. Okay, and now I'm going to put a little piece of coil here just to kind of level it off, so that when I start to go out, it's close to being symmetrical. I know it's not going to be perfect. Okay, so I do want to have, like I said, like a little flare that goes out. So I'm going to do that. So once again, I'm going to change where I score. I'm going to score more on the outside edge. And then I'm going to immediately go in. So I went out one, but I don't really want to go out very far. So I'm going to go back in again, because this is just kind of like a small ring, and I don't want to go out too far. So I'm going to start coming back in again. And then I'm going to go straight up again. But I'm just going to finish this circuit. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth it, but I want to kind of create a ridge like that. So there's a little bit of compressing and pinching. And smoothing. And I'm really trying to be very delicate with this, because even though the top, this part is a soft leather hard, I'm really afraid of squishing it. Okay. And there's going to be a lot of cleanup that I'm going to have to do once it completely gets to leather hard. And this is where it starts to get a little messy. I'm going to start going straight up again. And then I'm probably going to get to about here, and then I'm going to have to stop and I'm going to have to let it dry because it's getting really soupy. And that's more from the slip, the addition of the slip, than it is the consistency of my clay. And if you notice, my coils are getting smaller because this is a way more delicate part, the neck. You know, all the weight is down here, so these need to be thicker. And as I get more delicate, and especially as I start to flare out, I'm going to want to be even more delicate because the rim that you can see really should be smooth and delicate and thin. It'll make the whole piece look lighter, even if it's not. Okay, so you can kind of see where I'm going with that. I'm going to stop because this is really soft, and every time I touch it, I start screwing it up. So I'm going to actually pause for a bit, and I'm going to hit it with this heat gun, and then I will come back and I will clean it up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to continue to go up. And I'm not really worried about that uneven spot because I'll start there and then I can go back and clean it up and patch it up if need be. So I'm about 9 inches right now, so I'm going to start going out. I'm going to try to fill in that void. So I really want to make sure that this part is the same, diameter as that part. And like I said before, there's going to be a lot of cleanup that needs to happen and a lot of refining. This is really just the rough build. Getting it to close to where I want it. And then I can come back and patch, fill, scrape, clean. Okay. All right. So that's pretty close. All right, so I'm going to start to flare out, and I'm going to try to get to about here. Now, I'm probably going to have to hit it with the heat gun because I doubt that the weight is actually going to, the plastic clay is going to hold its weight. So I'm going to start doing it on the edge, and we'll see how quickly this forms. All right, now I'm going to kind of compress again. Check my profile. And it is getting very soft. You can see how it's kind of real wobbly, right? All right, I'm going to keep going, do one or two more, and then I'm going to hit it with the heat gun to kind of speed it up a little bit. And now I'm really going to have to be cognizant of cleaning the outside, but the inside, because you can see it now. And this is where it becomes a little bit more important that we end in a nice flat level way, because it's going to be noticeable. And I can always trim and cut things off. This is getting really soupy. Okay. All right, I'm going to hit this with the heat gun because it is starting to get out of control. So if you're going to use a hairdryer or a heat gun, you need to keep it moving, because otherwise you'll cook one section. And I don't want to get this all the way to leather hard. I just want it to firm up because I still have to compress and I still have to clean it up. So I really don't want to firm it up too much. But you can see the heat coming off of it, the glow. And it's a lot better. And if you look, you can see the little nuggets, the little burrs. Those are already bone dry. You can see the color. That's how hot this thing gets. It will dry it out really fast. And it looks like, because of the flexing, see the flexing that I've got, because it's still so wobbly, I've got some cracks developing. And the only way to get rid of that, you can't just smear over it because then you're just hiding the crack. You want to open it up and you want to score. And you actually want to patch it. You want to backfill with clay. It's the only way to fix that. And that's because I'm rushing, okay? And you can see it happening here too, because the top is all wobbly. So I've got to I'm going to smooth this out. I'm going to smooth out the inside and the outside, and then I'm going to wrap it up and I'm going to let it sit. I'm not going to use the heat gun because I'm just rushing and I'm going to wind up losing it. And when I mean losing it, it's going to collapse on itself. So I'm really trying to do a good job supporting this as I compress the coils and smooth over them. See how I'm supporting the rim with my other hand. Remember, I'm just doing the rough stuff. I'm going to come back and do a much nicer job cleaning stuff up. This is just the rough first edition. Okay, now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult to do. I'm going to pause. Okay, so I went and got a piece of fabric, or it's like cushioning material, and I'm going to put it on there so I don't damage the form as I clean this up, because it's really hard to do with only two hands. So okay, that's really rough. It's going to take some finessing to get this where I want it. Okay, but I'll get it there. And now what I'm doing really is just really delicately kind of pinching and modeling that upper rim, because the big work is really done. And I will wind up trimming this probably with a fettling knife, and I might wind up patching an area to make it a little bit more symmetrical. But I'm still putting a lot of stress right there. So I'm really just trying to get it into the position to where I can feel comfortable to let it dry out and get close to leather hard. Because once I get it there, I will not be able to adjust the form that well. I'm also pinching to try to get this rim the same thickness all the way around. And I've got a real thin spot right there, so that's probably a place where I will backfill. Okay. And I'm going to patch up this crack here. And then I am going to wrap it up and call it a day. And let this sit overnight so that this whole thing can commingle all the new parts with the same amount of moisture that's in the base. Okay. And it sat all night in a bag so that the bottom and the top area got together and, you know, kind of came to the same consistency. I did off camera clean this up, and I used the metal rib just to keep. And what's nice about the metal rib is you can bend it so you can kind of create the contour of the shape. And I did that. I cleaned that up, cleaned up the bottom. Okay, so it's also a good time now that my bottom is all smoothed out. I can go ahead and put my name in there. I also cleaned up the neck a little bit, and I didn't have a really strong idea coming into this. I had a rough idea what I wanted to do, and my ideas completely changed. So if you notice, I kind of put a little bit of flair in here, and I'm going to keep doing that all the way around the form, because I kind of have like a nice organic shape that's starting to come through. And I think it's going to be a stronger sculptural vessel this way. So I'm going to just smooth out a little bit. So I'm also going to carve some lines in, which I can widen. And I'm going to take these all the way around. I'm just going to kind of keep going with the organic feel. And you'll kind of see my idea come out a little bit better. Remember, leather hard is a good stage of clay for carving, because you're not going to really deform your clay as you're carving. And I will have to come back and I will have to clean up the burrs and things like that. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the top as well, so it looks like it's a continuation. My top is still a little soft, so I'm not going to be able to, I really want to bring it all the way through. But I'm going to run out of time for that in this demo. This is still really soft up here, but this section here and here are really nice. But that's going to go all the way around. And I also decided to alter my rim, okay? And I kind of roughly sketched it out. And I'm going to cut that. I need to find a fettling knife. Okay. And I'm going to cut this out. And I'm going to make this right here reflect that. Now remember, this is a sculptural project, right? I mean, we're making a sculptural coil vessel. And I'm going to turn mine into kind of like an organic shape. Now you can do additions, and I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. To this project, it doesn't just have to be a coil vessel. I mean, it is a coil vessel, but it doesn't just have to be, you know, coils going around and like a spring. You can add more to it than that if you choose. Or it can just be a really cool shape. Okay. round these off. You can see this is still a little plasticky. It's kind of in that stage where it's just starting to get to be a soft leather hard, but you can see that the burrs are not really leaving and not falling off, and the clay is still kind of malleable, which makes cleanup difficult. So I'm only going to be able to get a little bit of this cleaned up. So that's kind of like the top, and I'm going to have to come back and get in here as well. But I'm just going to show you where I'm going to go with this. Okay, so I think that's kind of livable. If you are going to carve the outside, which you're totally welcome to do, just remember that you have to think about how deep or how thick your wall is, because I can feel when I'm putting my finger inside, I can feel these marks here. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to have them reflected there, and maybe I'll bring it all the way through. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually, this needs to get cleaned up, but I'm going to start to kind of flare these as well, just as this is. Okay, just to give it a little bit more fun. And then as another element, I rolled up a whole bunch of little tiny coils, and I coiled that. When I coiled them, I rolled them so that they're narrow at the tip, like a little spike. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put them in here like this. Now, I haven't scored that, or slipped and scored that, but I'm just going to show you where I'm going with this. And there's still enough moisture because it's plastic that that's going to stay put for a little bit. It does need to be slipped and scored. I'm going to kind of do like a Venus flytrap, man-eating, dangerous vessel of some sort. So I'm going to come back. I have to obviously have to make more of these. Just a funky thing. And I'd like them to project tall enough so that, you know, you can see it when you're looking at it from this angle. That way, you know, you're going to want to look in, right? Because we talk about things being three-dimensional, that you can walk around them. So I'm going to take these lines, carry them all the way across, probably up into here as well, and then start adding these. So I'll be back in a little bit, and hopefully I'll have it finished for you. I've gone ahead and kind of taken these up and through here. All right, and if you notice, I've also taken them down and kind of extended them into the body. I'm going to continue to work on this, and I'm, you know, getting rid of some of my hard edges, as I mentioned I would. It's still a little soft, but I'm glad that I was able to carve those and get them roughed out. I'm going to let it dry a little bit more, and I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to roll out some more of those spiky things. And then I will come back and do the final assemblage, and then I'll show you how I'm going to add a texture to kind of even pull all of this top part together. Because right now it's a little bit more unified because these lines are coming up right and through, but I want to have a little bit more going on there. So I'm gonna let this dry a little bit more, kind of clean up, get rid of some of my burrs, especially in here, because once I put these guys on, I won't be able to clean this up anymore. So I want to make sure that I get that done first, because this has to be like finished before I add those, because I won't be able to clean around them. as well. Okay, but I'm kind of actually really digging it now. I was really not happy last night when I wrapped it up. I was like, ugh. But this is starting to kind of get kind of cool and funky. So I have already started to add some of these spiky things in here. I've got a whole bunch more to do. I probably will use all those and need more. I've cleaned stuff up a little bit and burnished and gotten rid of some stuff. I'm gonna use this part of this tool. It's kind of like a little shallow fork, and I'm gonna create another texture here and let it kind of pour down into the vessel. And I think this will give it more of an organic kind of feel to it. Make it look more like a, you know, plant or like a trunk of something. And then I'm going to show you how I've been adding those little spiky things. And then I'm going to call it done for the demo. Now all of these little tiny burrs, you can see I'm going to try really hard not to mess with them until this dries down even farther. If I let them dry down farther, they'll just brush right off. Whereas if I try to go and clean them up now, I'm going to stick them inside all the crevices that I just created, which is going to make it really hard to get them out. So I don't want to do that until, like I said, until it's a little bit drier. And I'm going to leave this area clean, so it's a, you know, a little bit different element. But I am going to bring it up into here. And you could replicate this with a regular fork too if you don't have this tool in your kit. Or you probably could even do it with your needle tool. Once again, though, not going to touch those things until it dries. And when it dries, they'll just pop right off. So interesting change from where it was a while back, no? Okay, so I'm going to start adding more of these little spiky things. They do all have to get slipped and scored, and if you look closely, you can see where I'm going to have to come back. And yes, on every single one of them, clean them up. And that's why I said, like, I'm going to add a few more and then I'm going to let you go, because there's a lot more cleanup that needs to happen for each one of these things. And that is the patience and the time-consuming part of working in clay. And if this stuff drives you nuts, you know, you don't have to do it like that. You'll find, like I said, that you'll figure out ways of working that you really like, and then that's how you're going to kind of stick with it. So I'm going to make a mark where I'm going to put it, and I'm going to score just gently. This guy's going to get scored too. Okay. When I'm doing little tiny stuff like this, I'm really trying to keep the amount of slip to a minimum. I mean, I want enough to attach, but I don't want so much that I have a lot to clean up. And I'm wiggling until I feel it grab. And I'm putting pressure down. Okay, and then, you know, I'm trying to make all of these kind of go in a little bit different direction, just so it keeps your eye moving around. I'm going to put this one here. I really wish that these were a little bit firmer, because as I'm pushing down, I'm kind of deforming them a little bit. So I should really wait on putting them on. Okay, so I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna put more of these guys on, and then I'll show you what it finally looks like. I've pretty much finished working on this. There are some things I need to clean up. I do have to get in here and clean up all these little spots of slip, and which is going to be an incredible pain in the you-know-what to get in there. I did a better job on these with not putting too much slip on them, but you can see the whole thing right there. I'm a little bit happier with it than I was, you know, about 2 hours ago. The hardest thing for me to do is let this dry. And here's the reason. These little tiny thorns, or whatever you want to call them, they are going to dry faster than this is, right? Faster than the whole thing. So if I just leave this out to dry, it is going to, these will shrink and actually pop off, because this whole mass is going to dry slower than these little tiny guys. So I have to dry this in stages. So what I'm going to wind up having to do is I can leave it out for a couple hours, then I'll wrap it up for, you know, maybe the evening, and then unwrap it again, and then wrap it up, and then ultimately at the very end, when I'm almost done, when it's almost dried out, I'm going to wind up just wrapping the top. So I'll just cover the top like that, so that these dry last. Okay, so you have to dry in stages, especially when you're working with big things and little things that are combined, because if you let the whole thing dry out, like I said, these will shrink first and they will pop off. Then this will dry, and this thing's going to take the longest to dry, but if you dry big things too quick, they actually crack. And a lot of times you'll see the cracks on the bottom, because that's usually where it's sitting. All right, so if it's sitting, moisture's not getting to that, but the sides are shrinking, and it causes a lot of stress on different parts and different elements of your vessels and sculptures. So I'm going to let this dry out for a couple hours, and then, like I said, I'm going to wrap it up and let it sit overnight. Then I'll, you know, slowly let it dry. Okay. And then as it's drying, I will come back and I will clean up all those little bits. Okay. So sculptural vessel, coil vessel, fun stuff.